got paper in the duffel. You got problems, I can tell. Hope my coffin cold stuff with dope and double C Chanel. I got 7-figure sales. You got tied up, then you fail. I probably spent your month on rent on lunch, your yearly spent on grill. Your whole crew gon' die, my whole crew gon' slide. I wish you well, wish that you would try. Wanna get supply, just ring the bell, ring the bell, ring the bell. So much paper on me, bitch, they don't think I'll check it, man. Get it high, smoke it till I leave. Push up on me, poke that 9. Watch me bowl it feed. I think I'm late, I'm checking that time. Private driver, parking out front. More than that paper, stand in line. Double off and I'm outside. Backseat riding, my bottle with stars. I got paper in this duffel. You got problems, I can tell. Hope my coffin cold stuff with dope and double C Chanel. I got 7-figure sales. You got tied up, then you fail. I probably spent your month on rent on lunch, your yearly spent on grill.
I cannot stand a motherfucker running up on me. I get it quickly, we settings on my family. Doom shot killer standing on the silly set your heart. Bullets like a bird, they flying through your fucking church. I wonder why you're crying, steady hating, steady lying. You said you got but you's a pussy, now your ass is frying. I'm loaded up, I'm steady aiming at you fucking bitches. I swear I love these switches, pull the trigger, rest in pieces. I walk the walk, I talk the talk, and now I'll prove it to ya. I'm 289, I'm 186, the Freddy, make you visit. I done a lot of shit to make it where I got like this. Dug my way up from the dirt and now the Freddy's pissed. You run around, you hit the ground and now you're bleeding, baby. I cannot give no extra credit cause I'm fucking shady. I stay up in the shadows, demons creeping, body shallow. I always want the battle, hear the sound of death rattle.
I got paper in this duffel, you got problems, I can tell. Hope my coffin cold stuff with dope and double C Chanel. I got 7-figure sales. You got tied up, then you fail. I probably spent your month on rent on lunch, your yearly spent on grill. Who gon' slide? Who gon' slide? Who gon' slay? Who gon' slay? Bitch, I'm looking for you. Keep them bowlers pay. Bowlers pay. I up that vibe. Up that vibe. Where you at? Where you at? I'm a 7-figure player. Chase a race. Yeah. I got the pistol grip and stick 'em up. It's time to end this living. Chicken bread, my mission. Fill it up. My money different. Probably spend your back on steak and shrimp and money slippers. Money stretch and flip it. Bitch, I'm sick. No penicillin. Yeah. $1,000 jeans. True religion. Not my thing. Private client living. Private driver driving me. Puffin' smoke until I fly. You think I'm private flying green? Up in London, Paris, Amsterdam, no can I'm overseas. Who gon' slide? Who gon' slide? Who gon' slay? Who gon' slay? Bitch, I'm looking for you. Keep them bowlers pay. Bowlers pay. I up that vibe. Up that vibe. Where you at? Where you at? I'm a 7-figure player. Chase a race. Chase a race.
7-figure trigger ain't nothing unless it's commas that beyond repair. Big juice on the rampage for them dollars. Yeah, let them step. Got my balaclava, shoot the witness. Paid off all the judges like Gotti. I got the system set. Rolled up in the leg lock. This 40 make his hip hop. Big shake while on the mission. Stack the bread until that shit pop. We far from holy one and only one I'll slide for. Got plenty I would die for. They'll send you to the good side. Where you at? Where you was? Bitch, I be out for them drugs. Got some homies call me Gold, I got some others call me Cuz. Show me love, no respect. So I'm sliding with my Drace. He don't wanna meet his nigga, that's okay. I'll meet his face.
Who gon' slide? Who gon' slide? Who gon' slay? Who gon' slay? Bitch, I'm looking for you. Keep them bowlers pay. Bowlers pay. I up that vibe. Up that vibe. Where you at? Where you at? I'm a 7-figure player. I'm a 7-figure player. Who gon' slide? Who gon' slide? Who gon' slay? Who gon' slay? Bitch, I'm looking for you. Keep them bowlers pay. Bowlers pay. I up that vibe. Up that vibe. Where you at? Where you at? I'm a 7-figure player. Chase a race. Chase a race. Five in the morning, smoke it till I choke. 5 bullets left, I put that 9 in your dome. Up at 5 in the morning, smoke it till I choke. Yeah, 5 bullets left, I put that 9 till you don't think you blind. Need to focus, bitch. Where the fuck you gone? I'm the blue strip, get a beast, the bird, a rolling stone. 5 in the morning, smoke it till I choke. Yeah, 5 bullets left, I put that 9 till you don't think you blind. Need to focus, bitch. Where the fuck you gone? I'm the blue strip, get a beast, the bird, a rolling stones. I'm the blue strip, get a bitch, popping never way to hurt it. Talking mad, I took his bitch and now we got vendettas. It's like I do it better, I can't understand it. Hide behind your animations, bitch, you need it to get famous, get it gone. Look into the mirror of your soul from the west side, baby, where the grass will never grow. I plead the fifth, police now get at the crib. Put your soul in the sky like a crow in this bitch. I don't know where to go to be found. I've been lost in the money, bet my mama be proud. I don't need it, you can keep it 3,000. 100K a month, I know the child of me smiling, but I know winning just a mile away. Everyone I know, they hate my sound, and every time I make a million and find another whip to shop and buy. Ain't nobody trying to be you, I make double what you try to make. I know the judge might me feel like heaven, but it put me in a place down low. I don't wanna waste your time, I get it. I'll push it to the side, now I'm tripping, I'll go. Truthfully, I probably lied to you. Everybody wanna be me while you trying. Roll the screen until I bang and let that metal fly. Off a chain, got to step it like I'm tired of fucking flying. Up at 5 in the morning, smoke it till I choke. Yeah, 5 bullets left, I put that 9 till you don't think you blind. Need to focus, bitch. Where the fuck you gone? I'm the blue strip, get a beast, the bird, a rolling stones. 5 in the morning, smoke it till I choke. Yeah, 5 bullets left, I put that 9 till you don't think you blind. Need to focus, bitch. Where the fuck you gone? I'm the blue strip, get a beast, the bird, a rolling stones.
Crazy, dog.
How much does it cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
Stop being cowards, because the collective cowardice of you and people like you is what has led to the circumstances of today. You can stop letting the enemy dictate the terms of your struggle. They're evil. They are actively doing evil. So treat them like the evil that they are.
The time to start is now, right? The time to plant a tree is 10 years ago, and the second best time is now. Strikes are the most effective way to stop profits, get demand, and force policy changes. If you can shut down profit, you can make any politician do anything.
I don't want to be part of the system as it works.
It's time to stop pretending otherwise. It's time to be ruthless, and time to afford them the same amount of grace that they give to their Palestinian victims, because they are only going to get more and more ruthless with their victims if you don't.
Mic check 1 2. What's up? Excuse me. Welcome to the stream. We're gonna start off with headlines. Excuse me, and then we'll go into more specific stories. Democracy Now! Is not even on the news tab anymore. What is going on, man? It's because I don't watch it every day anymore. That's too bad. Alright, so we'll start with at work, but I'm here listening. Hey, Kitacalypse. You are fine. Pleased to have you here. We're going to start with March 9th news roundup by Democracy Now!
democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Good.
But yeah, we'll start off with headlines and then we'll go into more specific stories.
The United States and Israel are continuing to drop bombs and missiles across Iran with hundreds of attacks.
We'll start off with a recap of headlines. Today's headlines and then more specific stories.
Reported in the last 24 hours alone. In Tehran, hundreds of attacks continuing to drop bombs and missiles across Iran, with hundreds of attacks reported in the last 24 hours alone. In Tehran, there were reports of massive explosions earlier today after Israeli attacks on fuel depots caused fires to burn for hours, spawning
Black rain. Can you imagine? United States attacks your country and then the sky is on fire and it rains black. The sky is on fire and you have black rain.
A thick cloud of toxic smoke over the city of 10 million people as it rained oil rain. Many residents complained they had trouble breathing as black raindrops full of toxic chemicals fell across Tehran. Officials warn the precipitation contains toxic hydrocarbon compounds as well as sulfur and nitrogen oxides. The Iranian Red Crescent Society reports 10,000 civilian structures have been damaged across Iran in U.S. and Israeli strikes, including homes, schools, and almost 36 medical facilities. Among the dead are 175 people, the majority children, mainly girls, killed when bombs struck a school in the southern city of Minab on the first day of the U.S.-Israeli attacks.
That was it was the biggest mass slaughter of civilians since the My Lai massacre in Vietnam.
On Saturday, President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth denied the U.S. was responsible for the bombing of the girls' school. They spoke to reporters aboard Air Force One.
Did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 175 people?
In my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Still investigating.
But the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
We think it was done by Iran.
But a New York Times investigation found direct video evidence contradicting Trump's claims. The video shows a U.S. Tomahawk missile damaged the school at the same time as a U.S. attack on an adjacent naval base operated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Meanwhile, top officials in Iran have pledged allegiance to Mojtaba Khamenei as the country's new supreme leader after the U.S.-Israeli coalition killed his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in a February 28th airstrike. Khamenei's ascension to supreme leader came after President Trump warned if he, quote, doesn't get approval from us, he's not going to last long, unquote. Trump said last week he would choose a great and acceptable leader after Iran's unconditional surrender. In Tehran, Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, on Sunday ruled out any capitulation to the U.S. and Israel.
Hell yeah.
America and Israel, who without any hesitation kill 168 innocent children, feel no shame for killing these children. They feel no shame for massacring 50,000 to 60,000 people in Gaza. And then they want to say that we in Iran want to kill people. We stand against those who attack our country with full force and will respond with full force.
Okay, but to still say 50,000 people were killed in Gaza is absurd. It's between 600,000 and 700,000. And there's no way to quantify it either, because people's remains have just become one with the rubble.
In Washington, the State Department's declared the U.S. war of choice against Iran an emergency, allowing the Trump administration to bypass congressional approval to sell more than 20,000 bombs to Israel. The weapons are valued at nearly $660 million. Meanwhile, Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has declined to say whether he'll block additional funding for the Pentagon's war against Iran, telling NBC's Meet the Press, quote, "We'll walk that bridge when we come to it." Iran's military continues to launch missiles and one-way attack drones at Israel, as well as U.S. military bases across the Middle East and the countries that host them. Earlier today, Iranian strikes killed 2 people in Israel, seriously wounding a third. Elsewhere, Iranian strikes have destroyed radar, communications, and air defense systems in Qatar, the UAE, Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. The attacks continued even after Iran's president issued an apology for Iranian strikes on Gulf states and said Iran would not strike targets in the region. In Iraq, fires broke out in buildings belonging to U.S. corporations Halliburton and KBR after an Iranian drone attack in Basra targeted a compound housing workers of foreign oil companies. Saudi Arabia reported its first deaths from Iran's attacks, reporting a strike on a residential area that killed 2 people. Bahrain's government reports an Iranian drone attack damaged a water desalination plant and injured 3 people. Roughly 100 million people across the Gulf region rely on desalination plants for their drinking water. Elsewhere, Bahrain's state-owned Bapco Energies company has declared force majeure, declaring it can no longer honor its contracts after an Iranian attack set its only oil refinery on fire. Meanwhile, police in Norway are investigating an explosion at the U.S. Embassy in Oslo early Sunday morning as a potential act of terrorism. No suspects have been identified in what appeared to be an intentional explosion that caused minor damage and no injuries.
They are chipping away. Iran is chipping away at the United States oil empire. Just kneecapping companies one by one.
Lebanon's health ministry reports more than 500,000 people have been displaced in the week since Israel resumed full-scale attacks on Lebanon, with forced displacement orders affecting hundreds of thousands of people. So far, Israel's assault has killed 394 people in Lebanon, including 83 children, 42 women, and 9 rescue workers. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch warns Israel's military has once again used white phosphorus munitions in residential areas in southern Lebanon, a violation of international humanitarian law.
No fucking way. No fucking way they're using white phosphorus in Lebanon, a sovereign neighboring country. What in the fuck? We're gonna stop everything to talk about white phosphorus for a second.
Assault has killed 394 people in Lebanon, including 83 children, 42 women, and 9 rescue workers. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch warns Israel's military has once again used white phosphorus munitions in residential areas.
In residential areas? Bro. What is white phosphorus? 27 million views 4 years ago. White phosphorus is terrifying.
Phosphorus is an element that can come in a few different forms. One of the most reactive forms is white phosphorus, and a while ago, I was able to get some chunks of it. It's stored underwater to protect it from air, and the moment I take it out, it starts smoking. This is because it's reacting with oxygen and letting off phosphorus oxides. It's often used to make large amounts of smoke, but it's also sometimes used as a weapon, which is a bit terrifying. This is because white phosphorus is not only very toxic, it's also super hard to put out when it's on fire. To test this, I'm just going to light this small piece. It immediately starts burning and splashing, but I can put it out by just smothering it, which makes it seem not that bad. However, because it's so reactive with air, this is what happens when I take away the dish. Phosphorus is an element.
This is what a white phosphorus bomb explosion looks like. The plumes of smoke, when inhaled,
these streaks are indicative of white phosphorus. Like when you see that type of those types of trails, that's the deployment of white phosphorus.
cause sudden scarring of lungs, suffocate people to death, and melt flesh just like the napalm bomb.
Did you hear that? Sudden scarring of lungs.
Sudden scarring of lungs, suffocate people to death, and
melt flesh like napalm.
Melt flesh just like the napalm bomb. White phosphorus is a colorless or yellowish translucent wax-like substance that smells a bit like garlic and ignites on contact with oxygen. When used, it's characterized by a loud bang and a plume of bright white smoke. It can stay dormant in the ground, but exposure to air causes it to ignite immediately. Under the Chemical Weapons Convention, white phosphorus is not considered a chemical weapon, and is thus used on battlefields to make smoke screens, generate illumination, mark targets, or burn bunkers and buildings. But it is illegal to use it as an incendiary weapon in war zones and in heavily populated civilian areas. It burns fiercely and can inflict horrific injuries, kill.
Yes, it's chemical warfare.
Populated civilian areas. It as an incendiary weapon in.
It's not a chemical weapon, but it's illegal to use as an incendiary weapon because, which is all it is.
War zones and in heavily populated civilian areas. It burns fiercely and can inflict horrific injuries, kill and burn to the bone, and its usage constitutes a war crime.
Burns to the bone.
White phosphorus bombs were called Willie Pete and were used during World War I and World War II. The Pentagon acknowledged the use of white phosphorus munitions in the Iraqi city of Fallujah in 2004. In 2008-2009, it was used by Israel on civilian areas during its recurring military campaigns in Gaza. And now, amid the recent escalation of tensions between Hamas and Israel starting on October 7, 2023, Palestine has accused Israel of using illegal phosphorus incendiary weapons while bombing populated areas in Palestine's Gaza.
Putting out white phosphorus. There's a video of this guy like in sandals. I'll never forget. He was wearing sandals and there was like a little nodule of white phosphorus just like burning on the ground, and he was kicking dirt over it with his foot. Yeah, that's definitely the deployment of white phosphorus there. I'm just looking for, just hoping to find that video, but never mind.
in southern Lebanon, a violation of international humanitarian law. In the occupied West Bank, Palestinians held a funeral.
That'd be like if, Lebanon is a sovereign country being hit with white phosphorus. That'd be like, that'd be like Denmark getting hit. You know what I mean? Gaza is a sovereign, and Palestine is sovereign, but Lebanon is not under any occupation. It's just their neighbor. It's insane.
Sunday for 3 Palestinians.
Well, there are some settlements in Lebanon, actually.
Palestinians killed after Israeli settlers attacked them near the village of Kirbat Abu Falah. 2 Palestinians were shot dead by settlers during the overnight attack early Sunday. Then a 3rd Palestinian suffocated to death as Israeli soldiers fired tear gas at crowds that gathered to confront the attackers. The killings bring the death toll from settler attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank to 6 in just the past week.
The people who gathered after their brothers and sisters were killed, someone else died because they were suffocated by tear gas. That is insane. It's like you thought that was a lot of tear gas at fucking why am I forgetting the name of the city? Whatever, it's in Minnesota. If you thought it was a lot of smoke in fucking Minnesota, that's crazy.
Israel's continuing to attack the Gaza Strip in violation of the U.S. brokered ceasefire agreement it agreed to in October. On Sunday, Israeli tank shells hit a tent encampment housing displaced families in the western Nuseirat area, killing at least 3 people, including 2 girls, while wounding 10 others, including children. Another strike in western Gaza City killed 3 men, including 31-year-old paramedic Abdurrahman Hosni Hamdouna. This follows an Israeli drone attack on Saturday that killed a father and his daughter in central Khan Yunis. Gaza's health ministry reports about 640 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli fire since the ceasefire was supposed to have taken effect 150 days ago. The Pentagon reports another member of the U.S. military has died in combat, the 7th since President Trump and Israel launched a full-scale military assault on Iran late last month. The Associated Press reports the service member was an Army soldier who died of injuries sustained during an Iranian attack on U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia on March 1st. CENTCOM also reports an 8th service member has died in Kuwait due to what officials called a health-related incident. On Saturday, President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, Vice President...
That sounds like a lie.
President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth attended a dignified transfer ceremony at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware for 6 Army members killed by Iranian attacks on Kuwait. The price of oil has surged past $110 per barrel as Iran continues to attack fossil fuel facilities across the Middle East while bringing tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz to a standstill. It's the biggest spike in oil prices since the early months of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, with some analysts warning oil could hit $150 per barrel within weeks. The Wall Street Journal is calling this the most severe shock to energy markets since the 1970s. The U.S. economy lost 92,000 jobs in February, with the unemployment rate ticking up to 4.4%, according to new data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Economists were predicting employers had actually added 50,000 jobs last month, but job losses in February resulted in the 2nd largest decline in monthly job creation since the COVID pandemic. Tens of thousands of women around the world marked International Women's Day by demonstrating against gender-based violence and calling for an end to the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. Here in the U.S., protesters gathered at Zorro Ranch in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein sexually abused and trafficked underage girls and young women. Protesters gathered outside Trump Tower here in New York, calling it the Believe Survivors demonstration. In France, 73-year-old rape survivor Gisèle Pelicot led a march calling for an end to sexual violence. In Brazil, protesters expressed outrage over the gang rape of a 17-year-old girl in Rio de Janeiro earlier this year. In Peru, thousands of women marched in the capital Lima demanding government action against gender-based violence.
For Women's Day, what we're calling on all peasant and indigenous women is that we can't give up. We know life circumstances are very hard because climate change has devastated everything in Peru. Cities are disappearing. So what we have to do, as our grandmothers, grandfathers, and ancestors always taught us, is rise up from the dust with our native seeds. We'll keep guaranteeing life and peace, guaranteeing food sovereignty. Be strong, comrades.
The U.S. and Ecuador announced Friday They carried out a joint operation to bomb a drug traffickers' training camp in northeast Ecuador near the Colombian border. The camp belonged to the Comandos de la Frontera, a Colombian crime group made up of former members of the FARC. Meanwhile, the Pentagon says it killed 6 men in an attack on what it called a drug smuggling vessel in the eastern Pacific Ocean. Once again, the Pentagon provided no evidence the ship had been involved in ferrying drugs, though it posted video on social media showing an attack on a civilian vessel. The latest killing brings the Pentagon's claimed death toll in similar attacks to at least 157. President Trump gathered leaders from 12 Latin American countries at his golf club near Miami over the weekend at the inaugural summit of what Trump is calling the Shield of the Americas. Attendees included right-wing leaders Nayib Bukele of El Salvador, Javier Milei of Argentina. The leftist leaders of 3 of Latin America's biggest economies, Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia, were not invited. At the summit, Trump vowed to go after drug cartels and blasted foreign influence in the region, particularly Chinese economic and political interests. The summit comes just 2 months after the U.S. abducted Venezuela's former president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife. In Nepal, 35-year-old former rapper Balendra Shah is set to become the country's next prime minister after his party secured a landslide victory in parliamentary elections. It's the first election since youth protesters
He's a rapper? What?
Maduro and his wife. In Nepal, 35-year-old former rapper Balendra Shah is set to become the country's next prime minister after his party secured a landslide victory in parliamentary elections. It's the first election since youth protesters toppled the former government. Shah is the former mayor of Kathmandu. He was a leader of the Gen Z-led protest movement, which was sparked by a ban on social media and driven by a lack of economic opportunities.
Oh, was it a ban on? That's not true. It was not a ban on social media that caused the protests in Nepal. It was the second thing you said, a lack of economic opportunity, and they're rising up against corruption. Huge L from Democracy Now! That is totally inaccurate.
And civil rights leaders and former U.S. presidents paid their respects to the Reverend Jesse Jackson at his funeral in Chicago Friday. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton attended the memorial service at the House of Hope on Chicago's South Side. Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, and Gavin Newsom were also in attendance. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now! And Gavin Newsom were also in attendance. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As financial markets were tanking, President Trump told CBS News yesterday the Iran war is, quote, very complete pretty much, just before the markets closed. But later in the day, Trump continued to send mixed messages about the war. In a speech to Republican lawmakers in Doral, Florida, Trump vowed to keep striking Iran's leadership.
We had leaders, and they're gone. Then we had new leaders, and they're gone. And now nobody has any idea who the people are that are going to be the head of the country, and will not relent until the enemy is totally and decisively defeated.
And later, at a news conference, President Trump was asked about the U.S. strike at a naval base near a girls' school that killed 175 people, most of them children.
Mr. President, you just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that
I don't know.
Under investigation. But Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
On Saturday, President Trump said he told Kurdish forces not to enter the Iran war. That's despite reports the CIA had been working to arm Kurdish forces to instigate an uprising within Iran. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said Iran...
Did he say whatever the report says, I'm fine with?
...is prepared and up to...
Report, you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
On Saturday, President...
I'm willing to live with that report, or I'm willing to look at that report?
Trump said he...
Report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
I'm willing to live with it, whatever it says, he said. Wow. Had to make sure I heard that right. That's fucking crazy, actually. Holy shit.
Saturday, President Trump said he told Kurdish forces not to enter the Iran war. That's despite reports the CIA had been working to arm Kurdish forces to instigate an uprising within Iran. Iranian...
Yeah, he's willing to live with it. Whatever his fucking intelligence hands him, he's willing to live with it. They were talking about the girls' school being, like, the largest assassination, the largest massacre of civilians since the My Lai massacre in Vietnam. And he's like, I don't know what it said. Whatever the report says, I'll live with it. These people do not give a fuck about human life. It's terrifying.
Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said Iran is prepared to continue missile attacks across the region for as long as necessary and ruled out talks with the U.S. to end the war. Meanwhile, residents of Tehran report toxic air, soot-covering streets and cars and balconies filled with black gunk after Israeli strikes hit the city's oil depots Sunday. In interviews with The Guardian and NBC News, sources from inside Iran report they woke up with pain in their throats and burning eyes due to the environmental disaster. The World Health Organization's Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, said, quote, damage to petroleum facilities in Iran risks contaminating food, water, and air, hazards that can have severe health impacts, especially on children, older people, and people with pre-existing medical conditions, unquote. Meanwhile, in Tehran, hundreds of thousands of Iranians rallied in support of the new Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, who succeeded his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, assassinated by U.S.-Israeli strikes on February 28th. Iran says the war has killed more than 1,255 people and injured about...
Yeah, it looks like they have no idea who they're going to have as their next leader, Trump. Incredible analysis.
10,000. CCTV TV footage captured a U.S.-Israeli strike near a boys' school Sunday. According to Iranian state media, a boy, Mayar Zangina, was killed in the strike. On Monday, mourners gathered in Tehran for the funerals for the victims of Israeli and U.S. strikes.
The ceasefire happens, the blood of our martyrs is wasted, and in my view, a ceasefire means disrespect to all these martyrs, and honestly, it must be continued until the end.
In Australia, 5 Iranian women's soccer players were granted humanitarian visas after they sought asylum. Iranian state television had branded the women as wartime traitors for refusing to sing Iran's national anthem. Iran fired drones towards Saudi Arabia and Kuwait early Tuesday. The Saudi Defense Ministry said it's destroyed drones over the country's oil-rich eastern region, while in Kuwait, the National Guard said it shot some drones down in Kuwait's northern and southern areas. This is Kuwait's Emir Sheikh Mishal Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah.
Our country has been subjected to a brutal attack by a neighboring Muslim country that we consider a friend, even though we have not permitted the use of our land, airspace, or coasts for any military action against it. We've repeatedly informed them of this through our diplomatic channels.
This comes as the U.S. State Department ordered American workers of the U.S. diplomatic mission in Saudi Arabia to leave the country. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham questioned whether the United States should continue honoring its defense agreement with Saudi Arabia because the kingdom has so far refused to join U.S. and Israeli military operations against Iran. In Bahrain, an air defense interceptor fell into a residential neighborhood, injuring 32 civilians, including 4 who are in critical condition. In Turkey, NATO air defenses shot down a second Iranian ballistic missile that entered Turkey's airspace. In Lebanon, the United Nations warns nearly 700,000 people, including 200,000 children, have been forced to flee their homes over the past week as Israel continues to bombard Lebanon. Lebanese authorities say nearly 500 people have been killed, with death toll rising by around 100 a day. On Monday, Israeli airstrikes hit 5 branches of a financial institution run by Hezbollah in the southern suburbs of Beirut. Oil prices fell Monday from near record highs of roughly $120 a barrel after President Trump suggested in an interview with CBS News the war in Iran could end very soon. Trump also called Russian President Vladimir Putin Monday to discuss the war. Soon after the call, Trump said the U.S. would ease some oil sanctions. This comes after the U.S. Treasury Department said it would temporarily allow Russian oil sales to India, just weeks after India agreed to stop buying Russian fuel in exchange for a U.S. trade deal. Putin said Russia is ready to supply oil and gas to Europe as the war in Iran has halted oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz while seeing major damage to oil fields and refineries across the Middle East. Europe had largely stopped purchasing oil from Russia to stop funding its war on Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine has sent drone experts to help protect U.S. bases in Jordan, with 11 countries asking Ukraine for assistance in countering Iranian strikes. Since September 2024, Ukraine has faced near daily attacks from Shahed drones, originally designed in Iran. The technology later transferred to Russia. Writing on X, President Zelensky also accused Russia of turning Iran's strikes on U.S. bases in the Middle East into, quote, a second front of Russia's war against Ukraine. The FBI subpoenaed records from a partisan review of more than 2 million ballots cast in the 2020 election in Arizona's Maricopa County, expanding President Trump's wide-ranging investigations into his election loss to Joe Biden. The request for records is related to a 2021 audit of the 2020 election carried out by the Republican-dominated Arizona State Senate, which, despite the partisan nature of the review, confirmed that Joe Biden's victory was in Arizona. This follows the FBI's raid of the election office in Georgia's Fulton County in January, when federal agents seized 700 boxes of ballots. Meanwhile, President Trump said Sunday he will not sign any more legislation until Congress passes the Republican-backed Save America Act, which would require voters to show passports or birth certificates to register to vote or update their voter registration information. The bill also effectively eliminates online and mail voter registration.
Why did I think the Ukraine thing was over? I don't know. Because it's been going on for so long. It's just like ambiently in the background.
In New Mexico, state investigators Monday descended on a ranch formerly owned by the late convicted sex offender.
But no, Ukraine is still flying drones directly into conscripted Russian soldiers every day. That war is so fucked up in its own way. Like, they're using kamikaze drones against personnel. One of the videos I watched, the drone was like waiting for the dude to lift his head before flying into him. Enslaved soldiers, that's what conscription is. And some of them don't even have like allegiance to themselves or to each other or to their country. There was one video I watched where there were 3 infantry walking down a road, and they get hit with ammunition falling from a hovering drone, and one of the guys can't walk, but the other 2 guys are okay, and they rob the dude. They take his shit and leave him for dead. It was absolutely fucking crazy.
Jeffrey Epstein, where survivors say they were abused and trafficked. The search of Epstein's Zorro Ranch came after New Mexico's Attorney General last month reopened an investigation into the property, which was closed in 2019 at the request of federal prosecutors. Meanwhile, the Justice Department has released 3 FBI interview summaries relating to Donald Trump that it previously withheld from public release, in another apparent violation of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Justice Department officials said the documents missing from the initial release were mistakenly coded as duplicates, but did not explain why only the 3 interviews that named Trump were excluded. The summaries describe interviews with a woman who said she was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump in the 1980s when she was 13 or 14 years old, after she was introduced to Trump by Jeffrey Epstein. In Texas, newly released body camera and surveillance footage cast doubt on an ICE official's claims about the killing of Ruben Ray Martinez, a 23-year-old U.S. citizen, fatally shot by a federal agent in South Padre Island as he was driving his car. The video, released Friday by the Texas Department of Public Safety, appears to contradict the ICE spokesperson's claims that Martinez intentionally ran over a federal officer before another agent fired 3 times. The video shows Martinez was given conflicting instructions by officers from multiple agencies as he drove his car very slowly near the scene of a previous car accident. The footage does not show Martinez rapidly accelerating or appearing to run over a federal agent. The officer who killed Martinez has been identified as Homeland Security Investigations Agent Jack Stevens. Last week, a Texas grand jury declined to indict Stevens in the killing of Martinez. In more immigration news, a family from McAllen, Texas, that includes 2 teenage brothers who've won awards for their mariachi music has been freed from immigration detention after a delegation of Texas Democratic lawmakers pressed for their release. 18-year-old Antonio Ramez Guayar walked free from the El Valle Detention Center in Raymondville Monday, and later in the day, his brothers, 14-year-old Caleb and 12-year-old Joshua, were released along with their parents from the South Texas family residence.
Oh, I thought ICE was going after the criminals. Why are we going after award-winning musicians? Like, this is just ethnic cleansing. That's all it is.
Residential center in Dilley, the ICE jail there. The family was detained on February 25th following a routine check-in with immigration officials. They entered the U.S. in May 2023, had followed the Biden-era process of applying for asylum. Among the lawmakers who pressed for their release was Texas Democratic Congressmember Joaquin Castro.
These were upstanding folks who were following the law. They were, again, at the invitation of their congresswoman, those young men performed their mariachi music at the U.S. Capitol. And now they've been sitting here in this trailer prison, and we're waiting for them to be released so that we can help them get home.
Here in New York, federal prosecutors have charged 2 men with terrorism after they allegedly threw 2 homemade bombs during a protest outside Mayor Zohran Mamdani's residence on Saturday. Neither device detonated. No one was injured. According to a criminal complaint, 18-year-old Emir Balat and 19-year-old Ibrahim Qayyumi made statements in which they said ISIS had motivated their actions and that they sought to cause more damage than the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. Their arrest came as counter-protesters outside Gracie Mansion clashed with supporters of white supremacist Jake Lang, a January 6 rioter pardoned by Trump infamous for organizing anti-Islam demonstrations across the U.S. In a statement, Mayor Mamdani wrote, quote, "Such hate has no place in New York City. It's an affront to our city's values and the unity that defines who we are. What followed was even more disturbing. Violence at a protest is never acceptable," the mayor said. And a federal judge has ruled Kari Lake unlawfully served as head of the U.S. Agency for Global Media for several months last year, ordering the federal agency to reverse cuts to programs and over 1,000 layoffs carried out under her direction. Lake was appointed by President Trump without Senate confirmation in early 2025 to lead the independent federal agency, which oversees the Voice of America and helps fund Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe, and other state-sponsored U.S. news agencies. Under her watch, the agency fired all contractors, laid off most full-time staff, and replaced original reporting with the far-right TV network One America News Network. She also attempted to fire Voice of America director Michael Abramowitz, though a federal judge last August ordered his reinstatement. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi.
Okay. Moving on.
Killed when bombs struck a school in the... Welcome.
March 11th. Moving right along.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The U.S.-Israeli war in Iran has entered its 12th day. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced that Tuesday was the most intense day of U.S. strikes on Iran. Iranian authorities say U.S. and Israeli forces have bombed nearly 10,000 civilian sites in the country and killed more than 1,300 civilians since the war began. This morning, Iran says it targeted Israel's military intelligence agency, a naval base in Haifa, and an Israeli radar system. Meanwhile, the Pentagon says Iranian strikes across the region has so far injured 140 U.S. service members, killing 7 U.S. troops. Another one has also died. This is White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt.
What is your current timeline for how long the war will last?
So look, as you know, Steve, the president and the U.S. military's initial timeline was about 4 to 6 weeks to achieve the full objectives of Operation Epic Fury. Again, to destroy their missiles and their ability to make them, destroy their navy, permanently deny them nuclear weapons forever, and to, of course, weaken their evil terrorist proxies in the region.
The Pentagon reportedly spent $5.6 billion worth of munitions during the first 2 days of striking Iran, according to a cost estimate shared with Congress. The Trump administration is expected to send Congress a supplemental military budget request this week. It comes as the Trump administration is reportedly considering deploying special forces into Iran to secure its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. This is Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal.
I guess I am most concerned about the threat to American lives of potentially deploying our sons and daughters on the ground in Iran. We seem to be on a path toward deploying American troops on the ground in Iran to accomplish any of the potential objectives here.
Meanwhile, a New York Times analysis of missile fragments from the site of the bombing of the girls' school in Manab in southern Iran on February 28th resemble the markings of a U.S.-made cruise missile. It adds to the mounting evidence that U.S. forces struck the girls' primary school. It comes as Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, dismissed the Trump administration's claims Iran was planning a preemptive strike against the U.S. as a sheer and utter lie, unquote. On X, Araghchi wrote, quote, "The sole purpose of that lie is to justify Operation Epic Mistake, a misadventure engineered by Israel and paid for by ordinary Americans," he wrote. This is Iran's ambassador to the UN, Amir Sayed Iravani.
Their intention is clear: to terrorize civilians, massacre innocent people, and cause maximum destruction and suffering. The world is witnessing how a rogue and irresponsible state, together with an illegitimate regime, is targeting the Iranian schools, hospitals, residential building infrastructure, sports hall, and relief facilities. These attacks have already claimed the lives of hundreds of innocent civilians, including women and children.
Israel continues its attacks on Lebanon, with the war expanding to central Beirut. An Israeli strike on a Ramada hotel killed at least 4 people. Israel claimed it was targeting commanders with Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. According to the Lebanese government, Israeli strikes have killed 570 people in Lebanon, including over 80 children, while 750,000 people have been forced to flee their homes there. This is Basma Ramadan, who witnessed an Israeli strike on a building near her.
We were sleeping. At around 5:30 a.m., I was asleep with my husband. My son was still awake after coming back from work. The sound was indescribable. The fear is indescribable. Enough is enough. Enough. This is a nightmare. When will it end? We really can't endure it anymore.
Iran continued to fire retaliatory missiles and drones at targets across the Gulf region. Saudi Arabia says it destroyed 5 Iranian drones heading toward the kingdom's Shebaa oil field. Kuwait said it downed 8 drones off the coast of the United Arab Emirates in the Strait of Hormuz. A projectile hit a container ship. The Dubai government says that air defenses intercepted 2 drones near Dubai airport, injuring 4 people. In Iraq, a drone hit a major U.S. diplomatic facility next to the Baghdad airport. CNN's reporting Iran has laid a few dozen mines in the Strait of Hormuz and has the capability to place hundreds more. The U.S. military said it attacked and destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying vessels near the strait. Since the beginning of the war, international tankers have largely avoided the Strait of Hormuz, and shipping traffic has considerably slowed. The U.S.-Israeli war in Iran has caused oil prices to surge from less than $70 a barrel on February 27th, a day before the war, to a peak of nearly $120 a barrel by Monday. Prices have now settled to about $90 a barrel. According to AAA, the average price of U.S. gasoline has shot up to $3.48 a gallon from just under $3 a week ago. The Iran war is also driving up the cost of fertilizers such as urea, ammonia, and other nitrogen products that are critical for food production. The American Farm Bureau Federation sent a letter to the White House saying, quote, "We are deeply concerned that failure to act could lead to disruptions to the food supply chain not seen since 2022, when food price inflation reached 40-year highs," unquote. Reuters reports U.S. oil companies Chevron and Shell are close to finalizing a deal that would become the first major oil production agreement with Venezuela since the U.S. abducted the former president Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores. Just weeks after, Venezuela's interim leader Delcy Rodriguez signed a law that opened Venezuela's oil industry to privatization, reversing a key principle of the Chavista movement, and persevered in Venezuela for more than 2 decades. The artificial intelligence company Anthropic is suing the Trump administration after the Pentagon designated Anthropic as a supply chain risk, unquote. That's after Anthropic refused to lift restrictions on its AI tool Claude, prohibiting the military from using it for autonomous weapons or domestic surveillance. It comes amidst reports that the Pentagon relied on Anthropic's Claude tool to strike 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours of its attack on Iran. The Pentagon had also reportedly used Claude in the abduction of Venezuela's former president Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Meanwhile, a senior member of OpenAI's robotics team has resigned over the company's new partnership with the Pentagon. Caitlin Kalinowski said she was stepping down on principle after OpenAI agreed to make its AI systems available inside the Pentagon. A whistleblower complaint alleges a former worker with the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, accessed 2 restricted databases and planned to share the highly sensitive information with a private employer. That's according to the Washington Post, which reported the Social Security Administration's internal watchdog is now investigating the complaint. If the allegations are confirmed, it would constitute an unprecedented breach of security protocols at the agency. The 2 databases included the records of over 500 million people in the United States, living and dead. The former DOGE employee reportedly copied the data onto a personal thumb drive. This adds to the mounting reported violations of Elon Musk's DOGE as it slashed funding for federal agencies. Alabama's governor has commuted the death sentence of Charles Sonny Burton, a 75-year-old African-American man who spent 3 decades on death row for a killing he did not commit. Burton was convicted for the 1991 fatal shooting of Doug Battle during a store robbery. Burton participated in the robbery, but had already left when the person he was with shot and killed Battle. Republican Governor Kay Ivey's decision came 2 days before Burton was scheduled to be executed using nitrogen gas. The daughter of the victim, Tori Battle, had joined calls to commute Burton's death sentence, writing in an op-ed for the Montgomery Advisor, quote, "My love for my father does not require another death, especially one that defies reason," unquote. Burton uses a wheelchair due to his painful arthritis. He will now serve a life sentence without parole. Governor Ivey has presided over at least 25 executions in Alabama. Staff members at Columbia University and New York Presbyterian Hospital were discouraged from reporting abuse committed by convicted gynecologist Dr. Robert Haddon, who sexually assaulted hundreds of women over the span of more than 20 years while employed at both institutions. That's according to a new independent report, which blames the systemic abuses on Columbia's culture of silence as the university protected Dr. Haddon even after he was accused of assaulting a patient in 2012 and arrested. The external investigation says Haddon used his prestigious position to prey on women. Haddon was sentenced to 20 years in prison in 2023. A statement from the survivors of Haddon's abuse said, quote, "Survivors and the public at large have spent more than a decade rightfully demanding the truth about what happened to Columbia. We are still waiting," they said. To see our extensive coverage of this case and interviews with many survivors, go to our website at democracynow.org. The Justice Department has reached a major settlement with Live Nation, the parent company of Ticketmaster. avoiding a breakup of the world's largest live entertainment company. The Justice Department had accused Live Nation of operating an illegal monopoly on the concert business. According to the terms of the settlement, Live Nation agreed to change how it makes ticketing deals with venues and would also pay up to $280 million in damages. Dozens of states have vowed to continue legal action against Live Nation. New York Attorney General Letitia James said, quote, "We will keep fighting this case without the federal government so that we can secure justice for all those harmed by Live Nation's monopoly," unquote. In Oregon, a federal judge is continuing to restrict federal agents from using tear gas on protests outside an ICE building in Portland. The preliminary injunction comes as part of a lawsuit filed by the ACLU and testimony by several protesters, including a married couple in their 80s and freelance journalists who describe having chemical or projectile munitions used against them. Video footage cited in court reportedly showed masked DHS officers discharging tear gas and firing pepper ball munitions into crowds of peaceful protesters. U.S. District Judge Michael Simon described the aggressive tactics on nonviolent demonstrators as objectively chilling. And Chilean LGBT...
Stop with the mascot shit. Stop with this shit. Don't show up to a protest in a chicken suit, man. This isn't a game. This isn't a fucking game.
Into crowds of peaceful protesters. U.S. District Judge Michael Simon described the aggressive tactics on nonviolent demonstrators as objectively chilling.
Look at this guy. You think you're doing jack shit, bro? Do you think you're doing anything by dressing up like a cow and showing them your ass? These guys will brutalize you. They'll beat the fuck out of you. Like, Americans are in the best possible position to resist fascism, and this is what they do. Toothless. It's goofy. Take your goofy ass home. You're not ridiculing these strapped out men armed to the teeth in tactical gear with your mascot outfit. You're not ridiculing them. You're ridiculing yourself. Okay? You're just showing up to get tear gassed.
And Chilean LGBTQ and women's rights activists are gearing up for the inauguration of Jose Antonio Cast.
Organize, make your demands clear, and be effective.
Today, the most right-wing president elected in Chile since the U.S.-backed Pinochet military dictatorship. Cast advocates for a total abortion ban in Chile and as a congressman voted against the right to a divorce in 2004. Cast is an unapologetic supporter of Pinochet, whose father was a member of...
Like when you show up to protest fascists, fascism is here to intimidate you. Intimidate them back. That is so... I'm still caught on it. I'm still stuck on... Be effective at what? Rabbi Joel? Be effective at resistance. First time chatter. Lilith is the white woman. If you want to enact change, you need to organize. Shut down profits. Control politicians that way. If they're here to terrorize your community and you show up to protest them, why make yourself look more like a soft target who's there to just fuck around? You know what I mean? Like, you are not striking fear in anybody.
of peaceful protesters. U.S. District Judge Michael Simon described the aggressive tactics on nonviolent demonstrators as objectively chilling.
Goofy ass nonsense, dude.
And Chilean LGBTQ and women's rights activists are gearing up for the inauguration of Jose Antonio Cast today, the most right-wing president elected in Chile since the U.S.-backed Pinochet.
And I'm not claiming to be like a political analyst or Automod caught you. The only resistance is to Jewish and Christian tyranny upon the white race, not your lolly land of delusion. What the fuck? Who do we have here? I'll allow it just so people can see what a weird freak you are. Tyranny on the white race. We got a fucking white nationalist in the chat. Wow. Everybody take a look. Fucking gross. Alright, get
military
banned.
dictatorship. Cast advocates for a total abortion ban in Chile and as a congressman voted against the right to a divorce in 2004. Cast is an unapologetic supporter of Pinochet, whose father was a member of the Nazi Party. Cast Party has announced plans to repeal Chile's current abortion law, which allows the procedure in case
I'm
of
gonna
a
shut
rape.
my door real quick. I'll be
And
right
those are some
back.
of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now!
Okay, that was the 11th. Now we're doing the 12th. That's today.
Large-scale bombings. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The United States and Israel are continuing large-scale bombings across Iran, where officials say nearly 1,350 civilians have been killed in 12 days of attacks. Among the dead are at least 40 people, most of them civilian, killed in their homes when an airstrike ripped through a residential neighborhood in eastern Tehran. Survivors said 3 residential buildings were bombed simultaneously while a missile struck a nearby police station. Iran's health ministry reports over a dozen hospitals and clinics across Iran have suffered damage, including the Gandhi Hospital in Tehran. Meanwhile, U.S. and Israeli strikes have damaged some centuries-old locations designated by the United Nations as World Heritage Sites, including the Khachel Sotun Palace in the city of Isfahan. The Guardian is reporting Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, was injured in the first February 28th attack that killed 6 of his family members, including his father, Iran's former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The Guardian cited Tehran's ambassador to Cyprus, who said Khamenei was lucky to survive the strike, which left him hospitalized with injuries to his legs, hand, and arm. On Capitol Hill, Pentagon officials told lawmakers Wednesday the cost of the first 6 days of war against Iran has exceeded $11.3 billion, a figure that does not include the cost of the massive buildup of military forces in the Middle East ahead of the strikes. Meanwhile, a preliminary assessment from the Pentagon has determined the U.S. was at fault for the missile strike at an Iranian girls' school on February 28th that killed 168 children and 14 teachers. President Trump's repeatedly blamed Iran's military for the bombing. On Wednesday, he told reporters he was unaware of the mounting evidence that the U.S. was responsible. Trump's latest denial came as 46 senators, all of them Democrats or independents, signed a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth demanding answers.
Dude, he's like Trump is like a rapper surrounded by yes men. He's not even aware of the real story. He's just everybody's telling him, looking good, Mr. President. Everything's hunky dory. He's like Drake.
Right, quote, the United States and Israel must abide by U.S. and international law, including the law of armed conflict. There must be a swift investigation into the strikes on this school and any other potential U.S. military actions causing civilian harm, and the findings must be released to the public as soon as possible, along with any measures to pursue accountability, unquote. The Washington Post reports the elementary school building was on a U.S. target list and may have been mistaken for a military site. It's not clear whether artificial intelligence tools were responsible for targeting it. The U.S. and Israel are relying on software developed by Palantir to select thousands of targets across Iran. The software relies partly on Anthropic's Claude AI systems. This week, Anthropic sued the Trump administration for designating the AI company as a supply chain risk after Anthropic refused to allow Claude to be used for autonomous weapons or mass domestic surveillance.
That's so fucking
Iran's
crazy,
military
dude.
says it targeted Israeli air bases and the Shin Bet headquarters in Tel Aviv as drone and missile attacks from Iran and Hezbollah triggered air raid sirens across northern and central Israel. Iranian drones also struck at Middle Eastern nations that host U.S. military bases. Iraq and Oman shut down oil terminals after attacks on 2 oil tankers sparked massive fires and killed 1 person. Strikes also hit oil storage facilities in Oman. A 3rd ship was struck off the coast of the United Arab Emirates. In Dubai, an Iranian drone struck a residential building, sparking a fire, while 4 people were injured by attacks.
Fuck all presidents, FAP, fuck all presidents, New Anarchist, dog whistle, FAP. Jesus.
On Dubai International Airport.
I like it.
In Bahrain, smoke rose over the capital, Manama, after an Iranian drone strike on fuel storage tanks at Bahrain International Airport.
Can we please get Amy Goodman some water? Please. It's every day with this shit.
Kuwait International Airport was also hit by several drones. Meanwhile, Iran
Like, she has a cough button and doesn't even use that.
continues to attack Saudi Arabia's eastern oil fields and targeted Prince Sultan Air Base with ballistic missiles that Saudi officials say they successfully intercepted. The International Energy Agency has agreed to release 400 million barrels of oil from strategic reserves.
Strategic reserves, yeah. We love Amy Goodman. Democracy Now! Has platformed Zionists time and time and time again, like Ro Khanna. So if Amy Goodman starts to get on my nerves, that's valid. Because the content has already gotten on my nerves worse than the delivery itself. So once I can't even digest what I don't even like, you know, it becomes taxing after a while. Democracy Now! Is good at news roundups and assembling world headlines, but that's pretty much it.
As a U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran roils energy markets. That's more than double the amount of oil released in 2022 after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It comes as Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, says it will not allow, quote, a liter of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, with an IRGC spokesman warning, quote, expect oil at $200 per barrel, unquote.
Oh my God.
Crude oil flow through its pipeline from the kingdom's eastern coast to a port on the Red Sea. But oil production experts say that will not address fuel shortages if Iran targets the pipeline or if Yemen's Houthis resume attacks on vessels in the Red Sea. On Wednesday, House Speaker Mike Johnson called the spike in gas prices temporary.
Right.
The mission is being achieved, is nearly completed, and the commander-in-chief himself said in the last 24 hours it will come to a close. So
what is the mission again?
We'll readjust after that. This is a temporary blip in an extraordinary trend of a return to American energy dominance.
Israel is continuing its relentless bombardment
Sounds so
of Lebanon,
confident.
where authorities say more than 630 people, at least 91 of them children, have been killed over the past week. More than 816,000 people have been registered as displaced due to Israeli forced evacuation orders and airstrikes. Among the latest attacks was an overnight double-tap strike on Beirut's beachfront, targeting a tent camp housing displaced Lebanese families. At least 8 people were killed and 21 injured by the Israeli strikes, which came without warning at 3 in the morning. In southern Lebanon, mourners gathered Wednesday for the funeral of the Lebanese Red Cross volunteer Youssef Assaf, who was killed in an Israeli strike.
What happened was that we were present in an area trying to evacuate wounded people, and a bomb fell among them. 2 of our young men were targeted. One of them is still in the hospital, undergoing treatment and surgeries.
In Gaza, Israeli forces have continued deadly attacks on Palestinians over the past 24 hours in the latest violations of the U.S.
This video, fair warning, is about every major neo-Nazi group, so you can know the enemy better. Right on, thank you. Thank you. At the top of the stream, we learned that Israel or the United States, I can't remember, they're one and the same, deployed white phosphorus in Lebanon. Just look up what white phosphorus does to the human body. I'm not going to get into it here, but that was the biggest part that you missed early on in the I Know I Was Lurking. Okay, cool.
Brokered October 10th ceasefire agreement. Palestinian reporters say 2 women were killed and 7 others were injured, including 3 children. after Israeli forces targeted tents sheltering displaced families in the Nuseirat refugee camp. In western Gaza City, health officials say one Palestinian was killed and others were wounded when an Israeli drone fired a missile on a market. This is a Palestinian survivor of the attack.
What is the fault of children? Children are gone, women are gone, elderly people are gone. Why us? What do they have to do with this? We are peaceful, but the Israelis don't know peace. They don't want peace in the Middle East. They want to fight the whole world.
In Sudan, a drone strike in the village of Shukari killed 17 people, most of them girls. The Sudan Doctors Network said the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, RSF, was responsible for the strike. The village reportedly had no presence of the Sudanese military. The civil war in Sudan erupted in 2023 as fighting between the RSF and the Sudanese killed more than 40,000 people and forced nearly 15 million people to flee their homes. U.S. Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas has reversed his position on the filibuster in order to pass President Trump's Save America Act. The bill would require proof of citizenship for voter registration, require photo ID to cast a ballot, and require states to run voter rolls through a federal database kept by the Department of Homeland Security. Senator Cornyn is currently locked in a tight runoff election for his Senate seat with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and is seeking President Trump's endorsement. The Save America Act was passed by the House, but Senate Democrats have vowed a filibuster to defeat the bill. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has refused to change the Senate's rules to force a vote. On Wednesday, President Trump criticized Thune, saying he's got to be a leader, unquote. President Trump has vowed to not sign any other legislation until he's signed the Save America Act into law. In New Hampshire, Democrat Bobby Boudman won a special election for a state house seat on Wednesday, beating the Republican Dale Fincher and flipping a Republican district. President Trump carried easily in 2024. Tuesday's election saw a 16-point swing in favor of the Democratic candidate, the latest sign that Republicans could face huge losses in November's midterm elections. According to the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, Democrats have flipped 28 seats since President Trump won in 2024. Republicans haven't flipped any seats currently held by Democrats. On Wednesday, President Trump traveled to the Kentucky district of Republican Congressmember Thomas Massie to campaign against him. Massey is a co-sponsor, along with Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna, of the Epstein Files Transparency Act and voted in favor of an Iran War Powers resolution.
You know what the name is? He is the worst person. His name is, what the hell? How did he ever end up in Kentucky? His name is Thomas Massie.
Richard Kahn, the longtime accountant of the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, appeared for a closed-door deposition on Capitol Hill Wednesday. Democratic Congressmember James Walkinshaw, who sits on the House Oversight Committee, said, quote, Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring would not have been possible without Richard.
Yeah, Epstein himself was an accountant, but this is the evil accountant's evil accountant. Fucking a Matryoshka doll of evil. Is that what they're called? Matryoshka?
Richard Kahn, who managed Epstein's money for years, authorized payments, including payments to victims and survivors, unquote. Kahn claimed he was unaware of Epstein's sexual abuse and had not seen any of his victims. Meanwhile, lawmakers are seeking to interview Tova Noel, one of the prison guards on duty when Epstein was found dead in his jail cell, a death ruled a suicide by the New York chief medical examiner. According to the New York Post, FBI records suggest Noel had twice run a Google search for the phrase latest on Epstein in jail in the hours before Epstein's body was discovered. Chase Bank also flagged cash deposits in Noel's bank account in a suspicious activity report to the FBI in November 2019 with a $5,000 cash deposit 10 days before Epstein's death. And in immigration news, there are disturbing new details about...
That's crazy. That we basically have, not only did he not die by suicide, we damn near have the person who was paid off in order for that to happen. That's crazy.
Egyptian mother Hayam El Gamal and her 5 children who've been imprisoned at the U.S. Family Detention Center for more than 9 months, the longest known family detention under President Trump's second term. In 59 pages of declarations that include handwritten letters and pictures drawn by the 5 children, the family details abhorrent medical care, inedible food, and a disregard for their religious freedom to practice Islam at the South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley. The documents were first published by Islam at the South.
Every morning we wake up wondering how much more of this we can take because 9 months in detention has felt like an eternity. We are being held not for something we did, but simply because we are related to someone who committed an awful and unforgivable act, an act we had absolutely no part in and we fully condemn. Imagine being punished for something you didn't do something you would never support, and then being trapped in a detention for months. Imagine being forced to stay in a place where the food is barely edible, where officers treat you with coldness and disrespect, and where medical care is so neglected. When there is also the constant fear of not knowing what will happen next, fear that we might not leave here, or we might stay here for months or even years without answers, the fear that we will simply be forgotten while our lives are being destroyed in this place.
South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley. The documents were first published by the Texas Tribune.
Oh. Fuck. If you're just listening, it's a child's drawing of stick figures made with crayons. There's a sun and some clouds, and a lot of birds in the sky, flying free, and people reaching up into the sky, and it just says, "When will we go home?" Holy fucking shit, dude. That's the most dystopian thing I've seen in a while. I can't with this shit sometimes, man. I mean, feels pretty shitty to see stuff like that, so imagine how they feel experiencing it. It's fucking crazy, man.
In one note, El Gamal's 16-year-old son writes, quote, "This prolonged detention has and continues to destroy our lives. It's slowly killing us on the inside. Our mental health is at great risk. It's rapidly deteriorating with every day we spend here. Our lives are without purpose. We are just waiting for this nightmare to end," he writes. Under a federal 1997 settlement agreement, parents and children can generally not be in prison for more than 20 days in immigration jails, although the Trump administration is suing to reverse that ruling and has violated it many times at the ICE family jail in Dilley, Texas. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in Los Angeles. Thanks for watching.
Alright, we'll go to the Resistance Report with John Elmer.
You are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada. I am John Elmer. This is the Resistance Report for day 888 of Israel's genocide in Gaza. It's the 13th day of the U.S. And Israel's war on Iran, and 10th day of this newest round of the war in Lebanon. I am reporting this on the afternoon of March the 12th. Things are moving quickly, but this report is covering the second week of the war. We'll start with the maps as we always do. We got some new fresh ones for everybody to see, targeting of U.S. positions across the region, particularly in the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar there, Saudi Arabia. Those are two critical bases, and the CIA station in Riyadh that you see there targeted. Up through Kuwait has been hammered. Kuwait is a major hub of U.S. Forces in the region and has been since the early 1990s. A lot of targets all over Iraq, American bases all over the region of Iraq from the 2003 war. And then, of course, you can see Jordan there. That's Muwafaq al-Salti Air Base. That is the key expeditionary air base for the United States Air Force right now. And it's been targeted numerous times. We're going to get into what was targeted on those bases coming up. But if we take a look at the next map, you can see a little bit of a zoom in on, first, this shows just the proximity of these targets. Bahrain, Qatar, UAE. We're looking at a map that shows the Strait of Hormuz and Iran at the top, just within 50 to 100 kilometers from these major U.S. installations, multi-billion-dollar installations that are just getting hammered right now. As Ali reported in his solid report, the IRGC has promised not a liter of oil that will benefit the U.S., the Zionists, or their partners will pass through the Strait of Hormuz, but they've done that verbally. There has been no very limited military action. A number of tankers have been targeted, U.S. flagged tankers.
Hang on, my camera is blocking the Strait of Hormuz. There it is.
But you can see the Strait of Hormuz, how tiny it is on that map, and that includes the territorial waters of Iran. If we look at the next map, you can see it from an even this map shows, again, the targets in the region with a little bit more colorful outline. There you see the embassy in Riyadh. The CIA station was hit there, and that forced all CIA stations in the region to evacuate. Those are mostly set up in the embassies and consulates, so you can see them targeted on this map as well. And then this next map shows you this shows you the topography. And again, I don't want to predict the war can spiral out of control, but when you look at this map, first of all, the Strait of Hormuz is shown there in the dead center. When you take the territorial waters of Iran into question, you're talking like hundreds of feet of area that is international waters, easy to be closed. You can see that ships escorting tankers through that are going to be running a gauntlet of anti-ship missiles that are firing in some distances as close as you can throw a baseball, it looks like, from this map. But also look at the country of Iran when we're talking about a ground war. You're talking about mountainous region. The core of the U.S. forces are down in the south. The capital is up in the north, also surrounded by mountains. It's just a completely different story than smashing Libya or smashing Syria, which itself took a decade to do. And you look at a full state like Iran, the size of the country, the depth that they have of human resources and military hardware. This war could escalate, but you can see the reasons why it may not when you look at this map there that you're seeing. And I just want to start here with a little bit of what the Americans and Israelis are doing. If we look at number 5, they decided this week to target oil depots. Strikes me as a sign of desperation to be hitting these installations so early. Things are not going as planned for the U.S. And Israel, and this was Israel targeting these. According to the Israelis, they have 80% of their Air Force targeting Iran and 20% targeting Lebanon right now. This happened on the weekend. The Red Crescent reporting 14,000 housing units damaged. 29 hospitals targeted, 9 of them destroyed or out of service, 65 schools targeted. So we're seeing, again, Israel being Israel here. Let's look at number 6, because of course this is basically chemical warfare. On the night of March 7th to the 8th, Israeli airstrikes hit multiple fuel depots and refineries across Tehran and the neighboring Al-Borz province, igniting vast pools of crude oil and refined fuel. The burning oil was sent into towering black plumes into the sky, releasing massive amounts of toxic hydrocarbons, along with sulfur and nitrogen oxides into the lower atmosphere. And we're looking at a graphic here put together by Reuters that shows the toxic plume taking over a city itself of 10 million, metropolitan area of 20 million. This is a world-class city with its similar density to many of the world-class cities that you're thinking about right now. In the next slide, you can see that it starts to take over and spread as the toxic plume spread across Tehran. Sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide combined with moisture in the air, producing dangerous acid rain. It oil rained on them. Authorities warned residents to stay indoors as dense pollution and falling rain carried corrosive chemicals across the city. One more slide will show the impact on the human. The toxic particles are inhaled. Inhaling acidic particles can irritate the airways, aggravate asthma and bronchitis, and allow fine particles to reach the bloodstream where they can increase cardiovascular stress. I think that's all obvious. You don't want to be breathing oil smoke and being rained on by oil rain. And that is the kind of crimes that Israel just normalizes in their war fighting. And I like to just start with that so we understand the human toll of what's going on in this battle. Let's take a look at the Iranians for their part. These are their missiles and drones that they're using. Of course, the Shahed 136 is the primary tool. 2,500 kilometer range allows it to target anything in the region from the coast of Israel all the way to the short haul right across the strait where a lot of the Gulf bases are set up. The Imad ballistic missile there, we've seen them used basically every day. The Fatah is a hypersonic that has a maneuverable re-entry vehicle. It's a significant weapon that we've also seen nearly in every wave. The way that the IRGC has fought this battle is the field reports are done in waves. Wave 42 was today, and the Khorram Shah 4, that is their newest missile, and it has a submunitions capacity, so that warhead breaks apart and distributes smaller warheads that are harder to intercept. We will see that coming up. The IRGC has fired upwards of 3,000 drones at this point and 600 ballistic missiles, almost 600 ballistic missiles, also some cruise missiles in that 600 number. And they are saying 40% are targeting Israel and 60% versus U.S. bases. They've targeted 17 vessels out in the sea. CENTCOM, for its part, the United States says they carried out more than 6,000 airstrikes, and the Israelis say 7,500 bombs have been dropped. but the Iranians are continuing to fire. Undeterred by this, we can see on the next slide the rest of their arsenal, because interestingly, with all these think tanks getting their multi-million-dollar endowments and following Iran like this is the Center for Strategic and International Studies, and they don't have a graphic that includes all of the missiles that Iran is firing. So I had to pull together multiple graphics, which should tell you something about these organizations that have been pro-sanction, pro-war on Iran for decades, and still aren't even capable of logging correctly the number of missiles and the missile capabilities on a single slide. So I used multiple here. So again, here you're seeing the Sajil. This is their newest one. We haven't seen that used. It's its most advanced. The Imad, like I said, being used all the time. The Ghadar all the time as well. And the Shahab 3 you'll see launched in upcoming slides. This is 11, so 12 has audio in it. Oh, this is 11. Okay, so this is the Khorramshahr. This is the ballistic missile that launches 80 submunitions out of the warhead, and we'll see footage of that coming up. Our next slide here has audio in it, so be prepared for that. So we're going to see all of their weapons launched in this series of launches. And just to give you a sense of how the field reports are done, for example, the 34th wave earlier this week, the IRGC said the firing of a targeted system of powerful and strategic Qadr, Imad, and Fatah missiles and the Khyber hypersonic missile in the 34th wave of Operation True Promise 4 has entered the battlefield with the American and Zionist aggressors into a new phase. The gathering place of American soldiers at two bases in Al Zafra and Al Jafer, that's in the UAE and Bahrain, were effectively targeted by the firing of the IRGC aerospace missiles and the vanguard attack of drones. And they said where they were targeting Ramat David Air Base in northern Israel, Haifa's naval base, and installations around Tel Aviv, including the hidden missile launchers in front of Tel Aviv. And at the end, they say Iran's target bank for attacking American and Zionist regime military and infrastructure resources in the region is 10 times the targets available to the incapable enemies. Security and stability in the region is either for everyone or it's for no one. So that was their report from the 34th wave. We are now at 42nd wave today, and these attacks are coming steady. One thing that the Israelis say, and the Americans too, they're constantly saying that the rocket fire, missile fire is down X number of percentages to try to make it sound like Iran cannot fire the missiles. But what they're comparing it to is on the first day when they fired 300 missiles, and that was just the opening day salvo. This is how they've handled the war since then, roughly 20 ballistic missiles a day, along with hundreds of drones. And that has been the way they fire. Israel has said this week that 800 missiles and drones as of Tuesday have been fired at them from Iran. The IDF said that about half of the roughly 300 ballistic missiles Iran has launched into Israel so far have been of the submunition warhead. And 2 people were killed in Israel this week. And you can see in these launches that there's some double launches. They're also using operational security that we saw all over Gaza, and Hezbollah, the way like you see here, they're blurring the mountain range that they're firing out, but you can see that they're firing from different areas because we previously hadn't seen those mountains. We hadn't seen those flat areas in the same way. So they're clearly firing from all over the country. It's a massive country. The next slide that we will see is the arrival of one of these submunitions. Right.
Oh my god. Holy shit. Hello, Amin. Je t'en fasse nous.
And so you can see there the way that the submunitions come out. These are the ones from the Khorramshahr that are 80, but there's also refitted warheads on the Ghadar, which is 15 to 20 of those.
Wow.
And the next slide as well is the arrival of a submunition of the Khorramshahr. And you can see by this, these are single missiles. Israel's trying to get these called cluster bombs. They want them to be associated with cluster munitions that the international community has outlawed. I'll get a bit more into that after we see this next one, because they're clearly not cluster bombs. That's a single strike of a submunition that could be shot out of the air by any of Israel's 4 air defense systems if they worked. We'll explain in a bit why they're not working as well also. So 15, yeah. You can see this is from a traffic camera, landing in the middle of an open street there. Also no sirens on those last 2 ones, which I think are notable. Israelis certainly thought they were notable. And you could see in the next slide, you could see the depth of the impact, and the car flipped over there. We're looking at 2 Israeli soldiers with their faces blurred because they're criminals, and they all know it, and their army knows it, and they don't put any pictures of them up. Now, usually they turn their heads, which is what they're doing here. We're looking at the side of their face, and the other guy has his back turned. That's how we see even Israeli graduations these days, because they have a feeling that justice may catch up to them for this war for them that is now 880 days into their genocidal rampage. The next slide you'll see is what the submunition looks like. That's roughly the size, several kilos of explosives in each one, and they're in the nose cone of the re-entry vehicle, and they break apart as we saw in those previous videos. But what Israel is trying to do is call them cluster bombs, which are a horrendous weapon that puts miniature bomblets. The bomb breaks open and it showers a small area with hundreds, if not thousands, of small bombs. And this is something that Israel did famously, infamously, at the end of the July 2006 war in Lebanon, when they had realized that they had lost the war. They sued for peace, and then they fired in the last days cluster bombs. Let's go to the next slide, because this is a slide from Haaretz newspaper in Israel that says, IDF commander, we fired more than 1 million cluster bombs in Lebanon. The subtitle says, phosphorus and cluster bombs heavily used, unexploded munitions litter a wide area of Lebanon. And I was in Lebanon at that time, and they were everywhere. They were hanging from trees. They were in people's houses. They were in the gardens and the shrubbery, so you couldn't see them. They're just small, and they're deadly. This is what the article said, quoting the head of the IDF rocket unit. What we did was insane and monstrous. We covered entire towns in cluster bombs. Quoting the battalion commander, the rocket unit head stated that the IDF fired 1,800 cluster bombs containing over 1.2 million cluster bomblets. In addition, soldiers in the IDF artillery units testified that their army used phosphorus shells during the war, forbidden under international law, and that the multiple launch rocket systems were highly inaccurate. So these are cluster bombs. They're all in one area, and they're intended to kill civilians. The submunitions that is coming out of a ballistic missile spreads them out over multiple kilometer range. All it is doing is making a single missile into a dozen or dozens of missiles to be intercepted, and those interceptions are supposed to happen by Israel's layered multi-billion-dollar, hundreds of billions of dollars air defense system, and it's not. And they're trying to call them cluster munitions because that's what Israel does: projects the things that they do criminally and hope that they can make it stick onto somebody else.
Every accusation is a confession.
The launch of Shahed drones here. So this is some of the 3,000 drones that have been launched so far. They can take off from there. You can see they don't need to be truck mounted, although we have seen truck mounted with racks that can send out a dozen at a time. But you can also send these from the desert and fire them off relatively safely in comparison to other munitions. So this type of weapon is not going to run out, and it's been very, very effective. And you're looking at the Navy's drones there. So if we look at the next slide, we also have audio in this for the launch of drones and cruise missiles. This is number 18 we're at now. That's the Pava cruise missile that you can see, and we're going to see later in the show that the Iraqi resistance is using that same type of drone. We also saw the Hadid 110 for the first time. It's a small turbo engine with a 350 kilometer max that carries a 30 kilo payload, and we've seen these be used by the Iranian Navy on targets in the Gulf that are close to them. We also have audio in on this next one for launches. These are launched by the Iranian Army, which is also in the battle along with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So this is number 19 with audio. So you can see those launches again. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said this week, she confirmed a report by Reuters that said as many as 150 troops have been injured since military operations began a week ago, saying that number of injured is in the ballpark of 150, something that had been covered up until now. Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell told the Associated Press that 8 U.S. soldiers have been severely injured, noting that the majority of the injuries have been minor, with some returning to duty. 7 U.S. service members have been acknowledged to have died so far, 6 of whom were killed in Kuwait and another in Saudi Arabia. Let's take a look at number 19B here. We're going to see the targeting of a Kuwaiti base with a drone from the Kuwaiti base.
Oh, shit.
And the American soldier there.
Oh, my God.
This is in Camp Buring. And an interesting side note, it's named after one of the highest ranking officers that was killed in the Iraq War. And he was killed in 2003 in the Al Rashid Hotel in Baghdad. And he was killed in an assassination attempt on Paul Wolfowitz, who was the biggest pusher and architect of the Iraq War. Wolfowitz survived, but Goering didn't. And they renamed this base after him. And the base is a miniature city. As people may know, these bases essentially become American cities. I watched a report on this particular base last night, and they were in subway, they were in an arcade, they have basketball courts and gyms, they have full bus system, residence quarters. They're sprawling miniature sovereign U.S. territory. And so the reason why these are being targeted, they've been known in this region for a long time, and it speaks to the longevity of this war in Iraq, war in the region, global war on terror that normalized these bases that are now being destroyed to such a level that rebuilding them, I think rebuilding them could come into question. The destruction level is such they're also largely abandoned, so their utility in this key moment is drastically reduced. Let's take a look at number 21. This is an IRGC drone versus a U.S. hotel in Bahrain.
Whoa.
And the IRGC said on this, the flight of the cowardly American soldiers from regional bases, they're taking refuge in hotels and host countries, and their criminal U.S. Army's use of civilian facilities in the Persian Gulf countries as cover do not escape the intelligence monitoring of the IRGC. The brave soldiers of the IRGC are laying in wait to hunt the soldiers of the aggressor American Army and will not let them go. And just on a side note, the number of locals killed in these operations are very low. In the UAE, in the total, in the 13 days, there's been 4 people killed. They were migrant workers who presumably didn't have the rights to leave the job sites in the way that the locals do. There's 2 in Kuwait, both migrant workers, 2 in Saudi, also migrant workers, and 1 in Bahrain. So when you're talking about the scale of destruction and death that Israel and the U.S. rains down, more than 1,000 in Iran already, 600 in Lebanon, and of course 100,000 in Gaza at least, it's just worth noting those numbers. Also, Bahrain arrested the people that took that video. They have arrested a number of people. The numbers are not entirely clear, but there was a report yesterday of 6 people being arrested, migrant workers that quote, filmed, published, and reposted videos related to the effects of Iranian aggression. And again, linking back to what Ali was saying about the Bahraini minister, this base, the U.S. Fifth Fleet base, is not so much a mountain of fire, as he called it, as it has not been able to do anything to defend Bahrain from what we are seeing. Number 21B here, we're going to see an attack on the Dubai airport. You're going to see a drone come in from the right here, and it's going to hit just outside of the terminal, and you can see it just misses a radar dome. It looks like that radar dome might have been the target, but this strike on the Dubai airport is part of the process of shutting down 14,000 flights in the region. Emirates Airline is the world's largest long-haul airline and by far the largest airline in the Middle East, and they are not flying there. You see a close-up of the Shahid strike there on the Dubai airport. Next up, we're going to see the integrated air defense system of the IRGC and the Artesh, the Iranian army, knocking these drones, U.S. and Israeli drones, out of the sky. We don't have an exact number on this, but we've seen at least dozens of these knocked out of the sky. At one point, the IRGC said that they had hit 80. It's somewhere between dozens and that at least, because we've shown you now a dozen just on this program alone, and I don't pick all of them. Also, next one is part of our weekly coverage of local farmers with expensive American drones. There's this local farmer in Loristan driving his Hermes 900 drone around town. So that is the drone work that has been done. But this week, the targeting really came to light on what on these bases are being hit. If we take a look at number 24, we're talking about the THAAD radar essentially eradication from the region. This is a graphic from the Financial Times that shows you, we're looking at the top radar. At the top is a $500 million radar. It's an advanced warning radar upon which all the system, not just the THAAD system, but we're talking about the THAAD system here, the US's terminal high altitude area defense system that tries to intercept before they before the missiles come back down into the atmosphere. They're exo-atmospheric, and they use the radars from the THAAD system is connected into all the air defense systems, and it's a very powerful one, and that's the efficacy of the system, is how powerful your radar is, how sharp you're able to pick up the trajectory, the launch site, and calibrate all your air defense systems on the way in. So when you knock these out, some people say it's the heart or the eyes of the system, of this multi-billion-dollar system. It's a $3 billion system over the course of its lifetime. Those single radar that got knocked out is at least $500,000, and each of these systems, each of these THAAD systems, is considered one THAAD system that you're looking at, and it can have 6 to 8 truck-launched interceptor launchers, each one with 8, so 6 trucks by 8, 48 launchers. That's what they have before they have to reload, and that's a $700 million outlay, and we know that last year they only made 96 total interceptors for the THAAD system. So the system itself and the interceptors is one part, but the radar itself is part of the radar for the entire system that is used by the US and Israel. We can look at the next slides. We can see the proof of that here. This is the radar. It's massive. It's larger than a than the trailer of an 18-wheeler. It's a significant radar that has significantly higher, like algorithmically higher capacity than the smaller radars that it passes off to. And what it does is it takes the initial reading, and then it's so large and accurate and sharp, it's able to tell the smaller radars who don't have that capability, it can tell them where it's coming, and that allows the smaller radars to then be more effective. So you take out the large radar, now your small radars are not effective, and this is a problem that for the US and Israel that will compound itself, and replacing them in battle is a long shot, although they're talking about taking the THAAD system out of South Korea. So sorry about that, South Korea, I guess, for the Americans. Promise to protect you, but actually we're just going to move your air defense system because we are getting ours all blown up. And these have been hit in concerted effort in radar communications and air defense systems in Qatar, UAE, Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. We take a look at the next slide. You can see here the damage on Muwafaq al-Salti. This is the base in Jordan. You can see that's the massive radar that you can see destroyed there. We're looking at a satellite image that is boxed that shows the damaged structures. Satellite photos, according to CNN, satellite photos show a Raytheon AN/TPY-2 radar and support equipment used by the U.S. THAAD missile defense system was destroyed in Muwafaq al-Salti Air Base in Jordan in the opening days of the war. And I reported on this in the build-up to the war because Muwafaq al-Salti base was being used for more fighter jets than we had seen. There was at least 60 additional ones on top of the U.S. Expeditionary Wing. The radar system for the THAAD and the transporter radar manufactured by Raytheon, according to the 2025 Missile Defense Agency budget, costs $500 million, as I have said. We'll look at another one. Are we on 26 here? This is another one showing the base from a little further up, but you can see, again, clearly see the damage. It's out in the open in the desert, and you don't see missed strikes all around it. It looks like the precision of these weapons are not area weapons. They're not missing by 20 or 30 feet. You're seeing direct on hits. This image shows a pair of 13-foot craters in the sand near the radar system, suggesting that it may have taken multiple attempts to hit the system, which is split across 5 40-foot trailers. According to the CNN report, all appear to be destroyed or seriously damaged. So they're picking them off one by one. They can do that with their drones. The U.S. has a really difficult time finding the drones in themselves, and they're using those drones to knock out the ballistic missile defense systems in these countries. Number 27 here, now we're going to look at the UAE. Again, you get the same site, a before and after of the system being destroyed in the UAE. At least 3 buildings at the military installation in Ruwais and 4 at an installation in Sadr. Both in the UAE were damaged between February 28th and March 1st, according to CNN. Pull-through vehicle sheds used to store radar systems and THAAD batteries at the sites were among those destroyed. And the next one you'll see again, you'll see the destruction, the before and after destruction of this second one in the UAE. And the Iranians said on day 9, the spokesperson for the IRGC said that the highly advanced radars of the THAAD system, which have extremely long range and have been destroyed during operations to suppress the enemy's anti-missile defense in the region. 4 highly advanced U.S. THAAD system radars were targeted and destroyed. The highly advanced long-range THAAD radars located in Al Ruwais in the UAE, and Al Kharj in Saudi Arabia, and Al Azraq, that's Muwafaq al-Salti in Jordan, were targeted and destroyed in a 24-hour period of time. Let's skip to number 31 here, because this is the early warning radar in Qatar, and this is a critical piece of all of the air defense. This is the most powerful radar, and it's the radar upon which all the other radars rely, and we can see here that it has been totally destroyed as well. So very significant for a long battle of attrition that the air defense systems are already struggling to a significant degree based on precision targeting by the Iranian military. So that is the coverage of the Iran front and the Gulf front. We're going to move now to Lebanon, where there have been now 10 days of war since this new battle broke out. You can see Israeli evacuation notices, as we reported earlier, and we had an excellent interview with Ruqayya Shamsuddin that people should definitely check out. She was reporting on the ground on these issues. Evacuation of 760,000 Lebanese on the move with basically no warning, only 123 of whom are in school and government shelters at this point. The Israeli military says they've dropped 1,000 bombs in 700 strikes in the first week, and they've killed 600, wounded 1,400 others, as we know from the earlier reports on this show. So that is the map of Lebanon that you're looking at there. The next slide is Hezbollah's response. Hezbollah said, we are warning the residents of the northern settlements, essentially doing what the Israelis do. You are required to evacuate all settlements located within 5 kilometers of the borderline. The aggression of your army against the Lebanese sovereignty and civilians and the destruction of civilian infrastructure and the campaign of displacement it is carrying out will not go unanswered. Head south. And Hezbollah field reports have been ending with this line. The Islamic resistance is committed to defending its land and people, especially with the Israeli enemy exceeding boundaries with its crimes. Its response targeted military sites, the Islamic resistance. Its response targeted military sites, unlike the enemy's targeting of civilians, and this is the minimum duty to curb it and prevent it from persisting in its dangerous objectives against Lebanon, its state, its people, and its resistance. Hezbollah has fired over 1,000 rockets since they joined the war 10 days ago. Let's take a look at this first operation. This is an anti-tank guided missile strike, a long-distance strike presumably with an Almas, which is a reverse-engineered anti-tank guided missile system that Hezbollah captured during the 2006 July war. You can see that this is one of the Israeli positions. After the war, Israel set up 5 advanced positions inside Lebanese territory. And this is one of those 5 positions. And you can see no matter how much earth moving the Israelis do, the Israeli soldiers always get up on top of that earth mound that is supposed to protect them and stand around. And that is what they're doing. In this case, the IDF reported at least 5 casualties from multiple anti-tank guided missile strikes on this base in that single day. This is from 3 days ago.
Goofy ass
like I said, it's one of
motherfuckers.
5 forward bases inside of Lebanon. And the Israeli army reported that 2 soldiers were moderately wounded in a Hezbollah missile attack on a military post in South Lebanon on Friday afternoon. Several anti-tank missiles were fired in the attack, and 3 others were wounded later in strikes. So, also in a separate operation a couple of days ago at 3 a.m. near the IDF outpost in Margolit and Manara. So these are the positions set up inside Lebanon. They force the engineering vehicle, the Puma engineering vehicle of the 601st Battalion got struck. The company commander went in with a recovery bulldozer to tow the vehicle out, accompanied by 2 D9 armored bulldozers. During the towing attempt, an anti-tank or explosive projectile hit one of the D9s. The 2 soldiers were killed on the spot. Another officer was injured in that as well. Now let's take a look at the rocket attacks. We're at 35 now here. This is rocket attacks on Kiryat Shmona, which is in the top of the Galilee Panhandle. You can see the Hezbollah crest there, and the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei there beside him being saluted on the front lines in these very dangerous launches of rockets with, Israeli fighter aircraft, helicopters, and drones in the air. Didn't get the video on the show today, but there's one released by Hezbollah today where you can see them setting the rockets with that watch by the Israelis. Let's take a look at the incoming. Oh, okay, sorry, there's a couple more. You can see the fighter in the dark there, moving away to safety after this launch. And these count as one operation too, right? So I'm going to tell you how many Hezbollah operations there has been, almost 200. But that's just number of individual operations. That doesn't tell you how many weapons were fired, because as we see here, there are multiple launches in each time. And again, with these Hezbollah videos, they give us the map of exactly what they're targeting. And you can see this is a multiple rocket launcher. It's at least 14-barrel rocket launcher that's going to be fired at Kiryat Shmona. Here, when the fighters get the launch coordinations typed into this launcher, they can set it for a timer, and then they can get out of the area for counterfire, which is what you're seeing the fighters do when they're setting those launch boxes. And these are significant launches. These are heavier. So far, they've been firing a lot of heavier weaponry, 302 millimeter rockets, and they have this is the Iron Dome system that you're watching at now, coming and attempting to intercept. You saw one just there fire into the community from a misfire. Let's look at 36 because you can hear that with the sound in. You can see that's a pretty good shot of how the misfire ended up in the community. 37, we also see incoming rockets here. And you can see the aerial battle. We're watching the streaks across the sky. This is the Iron Dome versus Hezbollah rockets, and you can see the Hezbollah rockets have the high ground advantage firing down, and the missiles are attempting to intercept. And you can just watch that for yourself and see that the interception rate is low. And with these radars out, it is a strong supposition that the Iron Dome used those radars because of how powerful they were to help to assist their systems. Let's look at number 38 because we have the launch of Hezbollah drones here, which they have also been using as multi-layered attacks. The drones are composite, so they have a smaller radar cross-section, and you can see the Israelis have been having a terrible time with this, as have the Americans, and the reason why the Americans made a clone of the Iranian Iranian drone because of how effective they are. And so the Israelis have not been able to get these to get many of these drones, despite the fact that they have helicopters constantly hunting for these across the desert in the south and also in the north. And you're going to see here the soldiers see it coming over and they open fire on it. You can see in the next slide that I called Life After Thad. This is them. This is the rifle air defense system. It's not going to hold up too well if that is the long-term plan. And of course, you might ask, if they're firing into their neighborhoods like that to try to shoot down the drones, is there a problem? Yes, there is. The IDF said this week several homes in northern Israel were damaged by helicopter fire during attempts to shoot down Hezbollah drones this morning. The helicopter used 30-millimeter cannons to shoot down the drone over the Lebanon border. So those are pop bottle size rounds from the Apaches that you don't want falling in your community, and they are because they are failing to detect these in time. Let's take a look at number 40 here. These are Fadi 6s. These are heavy extended range rockets that Hezbollah
bottle-sized
munitions. Warhead, 150 kilo warhead, and here they're aiming and showing you that they're aiming at Israel Aerospace Industries, which is the manufacturer of, it's the national manufacturer along with Rafael But you can see the truck launch there, and the operational security is not even letting us see the whole truck because they don't want to show where this is being launched from. But you can see the vertical truck launch happening there. This was among, at this point, as of Tuesday, Hezbollah had carried out 65 separate operations. Israel Aerospace Industries manufactures everything from unmanned D9 bulldozers that we watched destroy Gaza, along with the missile defense systems. So they're using their rocket and missile capacity to target those systems. And we'll see the next one. These are high quality operations. Hezbollah ability to pinpoint and target the Rafael military manufacturer here with a rocket barrage. The Rafael is the manufacturer of the Iron Dome. So we have rockets being fired at the Iron Dome maker. So a lot of significance, but also military advantage to doing this for the same reason the Americans are doing it. You target these systems and attempt to do a blinding operation is essentially what it is. And we saw this on the first days of October 7th when the successful attack on IDF bases was made possible by blinding those bases to what they think that they can count on to protect them. Like the Gulf states believe that this missile defense system, which is not having its best showing here in one of its first, if not its first ever active combat. These missile defense systems have been sold to the American public, since Reagan, since Star Wars, to try to shoot down missiles. So you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollar program that we're seeing in its final, in its peak iteration. And one more, we can see NASA rockets. These are 302 millimeter rockets that have attached to them. Hezbollah has retrofitted them with a guidance system. So these become guided missiles. And they're Hezbollah built, and they are going to target here the naval air base, or the naval base in Haifa. And the naval base in Haifa has a lot of radars for maritime tracking, but also it does dual function of tracking the northern border. So they are targeting these installations, these radars, for the same purposes. And this is a significant number of operations in the early days for Hezbollah. They are carrying out average of about 25 operations a day from a group that, if you listen to Western media or Israeli military or Israeli politicians, that this group was destroyed and degraded and then couldn't fight back. And they joined this war showing the exact opposite. Of course, on this program, people who are followers of this program know that we did not do that to Hezbollah. On the war ended in Lebanon. The Lebanon front ended with Hezbollah ground forces repelling an invasion by the Israeli military that numbered in the tens of thousands of soldiers along the border, and they couldn't infiltrate into Lebanon to the areas that they wanted to because Hezbollah was a considerable fighting force that repelled them. It's not, to me, surprising that Hezbollah is able to mount this kind of resistance because you were sold a bill of goods on their status before. One more 43 here. We're going to see again these guided Nasser series rockets. There's two types missiles. They're missiles because they have guidance systems, and you're going to see them target here a key satellite installation in central Israel that used to be a national satellite installation, but was privatized. But it is the key download link from space of satellite communications, television communications, radio communications, and it's a satellite station and a satellite farm. So again, targeting it effectively, as we're going to see coming up in this video, because Hezbollah has attached this video of dash cam footage we're watching, and there you see the strike on the right hand side there. So dash cam footage that was released by the Israelis immediately shows up in Hezbollah's video to prove that they hit these targets, which, by the way, Israel denied happened, which they do every time, and that is what working right now in this den of lies that we are living in is always challenging. So 44, there's just one more. Was that him walking around? Did we see him walking around? He's going to walk, Israeli soldier here walking around. You can see all of a number of the satellites destroyed. You can see the main transmitter there also destroyed at this satellite farm. So successful hits by Hezbollah. And just to give you a sense, Hezbollah in the first week carried out 153 operations. So in the first 7 days, 153 operations, 96 into Israel, 57 into Israeli positions inside Lebanon. The targeting distance was 160 kilometers. So they've already moved to the highest level of depth of targeting as they were when the war left off. They're not re-entering the escalation ladder. They've targeted 36 military bases in those 153 attacks. They've downed 3 drones, and they've used 90 missiles, 9 artillery, 90 missile ops, 99 artillery ops, 29 drones. Enemy losses, they suspect 19 military vehicles, 74 fortifications and defensive positions, which is what those berms that we saw them getting hit on are. And that is just 1 week of operations from Hezbollah. So that is the Lebanon front. And I want to show you a little bit from Iraq before we wrap up here. This is the Islamic resistance in Iraq targeting U.S. bases. This is their own compilation. They put these videos out every day, multiple times a day. But this is a compilation of their attacks. They are targeting the Operation Inherent Resolve Base Command headquarters in Erbil. They're hitting facilities all over Iraq. The Inherent Resolve Command in Erbil is hit daily, but there's, of course, American positions all over Iraq that are being hit. The American presence headquarters at Baghdad Airport is being hit. The housing units of soldiers on the occupation base in Erbil have been hit. There you can see some of the aftermath of that. And these are with largely with drones, although we're going to see on the next slide a cruise missile launched. This is the Jamal 10. This is its debut flight. It's based on the Pava IRGC cruise missile that we saw launched earlier, and particularly the cruise missile we saw during Operation True Promise 1 and 2 when they sent the waves of drones ahead of time, and the cruise missiles. So the drones go slow, cruise missiles go faster, missiles go on an arcing ballistic trajectory. And so when you send the three of them, it sends a multi-layered attack. And for the Iraqi resistance here, I mark them down every day. They're at 291 operations. They're averaging almost 30 a day against the American positions in Iraq. And those, the Pava, the Jamal 10 that you saw, the cruise missile, that can target Israel. And they said they did target Israel with that. And with this one last slide, just want to show you how the Americans are doing here. The Pentagon has burned through $5.6 billion worth of ammunition during the first 2 days of its military assault on Iran. According to 3 U.S. officials, a figure underscores the deepening alarm among some on Capitol Hills. $5.6 billion in 2 days to basically watch their entire military architecture in the Middle East be destroyed. So that is the Resistance Report for day 888 of Israel's genocide.
All right, I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks for checking out the stream. I will see you guys later on. Peace.
Where's your fucking badge, you pigs? We go hard for Palestine. We escalate for Palestine. We fight for Palestine. We give it everything we got. We do not work with the police. We do not point people out to the police. We do not lay hands on our comrades. When we go hard for our people, you stand out the way. If you ain't with it, stand out.